the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Large Glass. I'm Todd.
I'm Terri.
And this is the show where we bring you a new artist or art-related theme every week. And we are sorry we are late.
Yes, but we did warn you because we had a graduation today.
We did. We had a graduation. It was very nice.
Yes.
The weather was, it was perfect, but this huge black looming cloud.
Gorgeous clouds tonight.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, right over the field.
It was the plein air painter's dream tonight.
Yes, it really, really was.
So we're excited that you're here. We thank you for coming. Look, we got Dave, we've got Ben, we've got Jess Park, we've got John Park, we've got Pumpkin Audrey, and we've got Mom. So we've got a great crowd already, which is really awesome. Thanks for joining us. And I know last week we said we were going to be on at 5, and then we were toying with earlier, but there was all these mix-ups with
parts.
The time of the graduation.
And not to mention rehearsal and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
it was, but it was good. It paid off. Right. And then we rapidly ordered sushi, which was late, and we ate that on the drive home. To try and get back here for this show.
Tried to walk the dog. Almost died going down the stairs because she did a loop-de-loop. Thank God for our neighbors who helped us.
Any normal person would just postpone the show and say, oh, we're off next week. But no, here we are. Because we're committed, and we're excited to bring you tonight's show for sure.
Yes, we
are. For sure. So, I think we need to have a beer.
We definitely need to.
A celebratory beer in honor of the 8th grade graduation, number 1.
Here, I cracked one open. Here you go.
Oh, thank you very much. That is fantastic. Thank you.
Look at all that.
Ben says, yes, you are.
Frothy stuff. I gave you a lot of,
Are we going to say that on the air?
It'll go down.
Thanks, honey. This is a symbol. This is a symbol of our night. Hasty. I'm not even gonna say it. There's so many things I could say. And I'm not gonna say it. Here you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So episode 42.
42.
And I'll try and get to the bottom of that.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Nice job. I have a beer mustache. The All Day IPA by Founders.
Very good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do we have in store tonight? We do have to honor a follower.
We do.
We have some birthdays. We're skipping art news tonight, not because there isn't anything to tell. There were some interesting stories out there that I was considering putting up there. The only reason we're skipping it is because we have so much to cover in what we're doing tonight and plus we're starting late to begin with. So I thought, well, we'll do extra news next week. How about that? And by the way, speaking of next week, we have another live artist in the studio next week who hails from Tennessee. He is a fantastic painter. And I think that is going to be a show you're all going to love. We cannot wait for next week. Yeah. So definitely plan on being here and tuning in. Yeah. So why don't we let's honor somebody, shall we? That is not what I wanted to have up there. That's a little sneak peek at what's going to be going on in a little while, but let's take that away for now. And tonight's featured supporter, our special thanks goes out to Jess Park.
Yay!
Thanks, Jess. You're awesome. We love having your support. We love that you're here and watching. Yeah. We love the commentary that you and John put in. And at first I was like, I can't do them both on the same night. That's not fair. Everybody gets their day. So this one's for you. And thanks to you. We appreciate that.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. What's next?
I believe we have a couple of
We've got some birthdays. All right. Let's get some birthdays going.
All right.
So we are going to start birthdays off. Not too many this week.
No, there's not.
Not like those 7 and 9 birthdays.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. So who do we have here? We have
MC Escher.
MC Escher.
Yes. He was born on June 17th in 1898. He was a graphic artist, very mathematically inspired. Didn't quite have artistic recognition when he was alive. People didn't take him very seriously.
Yeah.
But later in life, after he passed away, he became very famous, and he's known for his lithographs, mezzotints, very optical illusion-esque kind of work.
That's what he's most known for.
Yeah.
Right? The Endless Stairway.
Yeah.
And, I threw in a few different ones for the sake of not always wanting to have the
his
same.
birthday.
Yes.
So
happy birthday, MC.
MC.
All right. Next on the list is one of my favorite people, and I miss him because he passed away.
Last year, right?
Mr. John Baldessari.
That's right. John was born on the 17th as well in 1931, died last January. He's an American conceptual artist. He's usually known for using some photography and appropriated images and incorporating them into his work.
But what an awesome spirit and personality. What a sweet man.
Yeah.
I love him. All right. Cruising on to some people we've featured on the show before.
Yes, the brothers Quay.
Or the Quay brothers.
Or the Quay brothers. They were also born on June 17th. June 17th was a big day. This was in 1947. Stephen and Timothy, known for filmmaking. We featured them in episode 19 of The Large Glass.
Memory Vessels here. Hi. And
Good evening.
I Hate Username 67 says, I met him. He's referring to Baldessari.
Yes.
He was very cool and tall.
Wow.
Yeah, I seem to remember seeing images of him standing next to people, and he is quite tall.
One of the artists that's in the show that we were going to talk about later on, I guess they were educated by him, or he was one of their teachers because they had sent out a shout out when he passed away.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I guess it's a small world.
Well, and Baldessari was a huge influence on the conceptual art world especially, and he was a very available personality, unlike other artists, which I could mention right now and probably get in trouble for, but won't. I won't. Let's move on before I get myself into trouble. This man, Mr. Kurt Schwitters.
Mr. Kurt Schwitters.
I think we should do a show on this guy.
Yes.
But
I agree.
I'll let you do your thing.
June 20th, 1887, Kurt Schwitters was born, known for Dadaism, surrealism, modern art, uses a lot of collage elements in his pieces. He's pretty much a master of lots of forms of art, sculpture and rendering and painting.
Some of his performance is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So I like this guy. He's well-rounded. He covered a lot of disciplines.
Very well-rounded.
So he was always a big, kind of hero of mine, actually, especially when I was in college. So happy birthday, Kurt.
Happy birthday.
And last but not least, just because we do these in order, this is Henry Osua.
Thank you. Tanner.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why you're looking at me. I'm like, it's
well, because I knew I was going to kind of mispronounce that middle name, so I'm glad that you picked that up for me. June 21st, 1859, he was born. He was one of the Harlem Renaissance painters known for incorporating realism into his work. He's also one of the first African-American painters to gain international acclaim with his work.
Yeah.
So happy birthday.
All right. Happy birthday to Henry. All right. Well, that wraps up our birthdays.
Yes.
It's funny. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, it's 8:40, but we're a half an hour late.
We're kind of
so we're actually 10 minutes behind our normal schedule, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit, like we always do, about support. Now, I know you guys are tired of hearing about this, and I got to tell you, I had a conversation with Susan Stillman yesterday. Maybe she's watching. I don't know. If you're here, Susan, I saw that you followed, so thanks for that. Chime in and say hello in the chat room. But I had a conversation with Susan yesterday, and we are going to be receiving which painting that we're going to be doing the giveaway with by the next show. So we'll actually be able to sort of cut away from these examples of Susan's work and show the piece that our viewers can win. So I think that's fantastic. So Susan, for those of you who don't know, Susan has generously donated a painting to us to give away on the show as an incentive to get new followers. How do we get new followers? Well, part of that can happen through you if you spread the word and get the word out there to your friends and say, hey, there's this crazy art show with these two goofballs on Twitch that like to drink and talk about art and artists, and it's fun and informal, and you don't have to be afraid to say things in the chat because we don't overdo it. I hope we don't overdo it, but you can get them to follow us. And then as that follower count ticks up to that seemingly insurmountable number of 200, but I think we can get there.
I think we can get there.
Yeah. So we will give that painting away when we hit that number. All right. Now, the other way that you could support us if you wanted to is we are on Patreon. Patreon is a monthly subscription, just like the subscriber element of Twitch. You can go to Patreon and subscribe to us if you choose to go that way. Now, the difference is, and I'm not knocking Twitch's subscription service one bit. Here's why I think Patreon is better. Patreon is better because we are uploading exclusive content to Patreon that you unlock as a viewer. We have got 2 videos that are going to go up on there this week that deal with the very entity we're talking about tonight.
Yes.
We do a small series where we're talking about who's your favorite artist. All kinds of little stuff go up there.
All kinds of different little things that we normally don't put up on our show, but are a lot of fun to see.
Right. And on top of that, we will be doing Discord inclusive to our Patreon members discussions where you're actually live with us rather than being in a chat room. You're on a mic or on a camera, and the topic will be open for a larger kind of discussion. So that's one advantage of joining us via Patreon. If you want to get there, it's patreon.com/thelargeglass separated by underscores. I'm going to stop talking about that now. Thanks very much. Spread the word. All right.
Spread the word.
Awesome. So we are going to be talking about something we went and visited this week.
We are.
And I'm in love with this.
I'm in love with this too. To start off, we tried to pair what we're talking about. As many of you know, we kind of look and see what's going on in the world, what's happening. How can we relate this to things that
the artists that we're going to do
out there, right? So initially we had another idea because Father's Day is coming up. So we were really excited about working on one of those projects, but it didn't quite happen, which is fine. We're going to try to get there later.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But we went out exploring in our community. And it was very exciting because we haven't been out much. So we finally, this weekend, there were no kids in the house. We had the place to ourselves. We're vaccinated. So we're like,
kids are gone.
We're going out there, man.
We go to look at art because that's because we can.
Night. And yeah, so Saturday, we decided to hit a place that we've been dying to see. So it's in Frenchtown, New Jersey, right here in Hunterdon County. It's a beautiful facility. It's gotten a lot of recognition and acclaim. So we decided we're going to go check it out and see what the place has to offer.
Just as a little side note, Gary Palker's here on YouTube. Hi, Gary. Glad you could join us tonight. It's nice to see you. You're not actually that late because we started late. So glad to have you. Now, last week on the news, I told you that Centre Pompidou in Paris was going to be opening an annex in Jersey City, which kind of partially blew my head off a little bit. That institution,
that caliber,
was bringing something
here in New Jersey
to New Jersey. Well, I got news for you. The Art Yard in Frenchtown, New Jersey, which is the entity we're talking about, has that same kind of caliber. We are not talking about your average art venue here. We're talking about a professional, thought-provoking, really, really high-end place to go and visit. We had a fantastic time there.
We were blown away.
And we were really quite blown away by the caliber of show that's going on right now. The title of that show is called Girl You Want. And let's switch over real quick so that I can just pull up. I'm going to pull up the Art Yard's website to start with because I think that's a really great place to begin this discussion about that show. It gives you a taste of their website. It's a great place to go look and explore. They have a lot of little inclusive side projects that go on. Sometimes they put a call out to the community to participate in these things.
There was a photographer who captured the show in a fantastic manner. And we also took some images as well. But looking at their website, we felt that their website was a really good virtual view of what they have to offer. By no means, though, does it replace the actual physical feeling.
Correct.
Because with the pictures, you are missing the atmosphere. And there's a lot going on in the atmosphere. There's music playing. There's little quotes here and there on the walls that you're not going to quite see with these pictures. One of the quotes that absolutely arrested me was a Toni Morrison quote. Close to the border, like the trim on the bottom of the gallery floor, like I think some people might have missed it if they were just walking around, but it was placed so superbly, and you have to go see the exhibit. But the website certainly does a great job in showing it.
Their curatorial team or their mission, I'm just gleaning this from what we got from this place, they really value looking carefully, right? And so what Terri was just saying about the Toni Morrison quote is one example. They have these other little examples of what they call VSGs. There's 3 of them in the space. VSG stands for Very Small Gallery. Now, we're not going to put those in the show tonight. We're actually going to add that to some other content on Patreon later. But just to give you a hint, the VSGs are these beautiful little antique peepholes that they installed in secret locations inside the building. And when you happen upon them, there's usually a little door to open or a little window that swings open, and there's an entire environment built, curated, and built inside the wall that you can gaze into, almost like looking through the peephole. It's magical. And you find yourself saying, oh, wait, I found 2. Where's the other one? Back through the whole place you go. Because you gotta find that. So we love that. 67 is saying, I saw that earlier and wondered if they took that title from the Devo song, The Girl You Want. Not that it has any bearing on the artwork, just an interesting title. Yeah, that's actually
the title. Yeah, I agree. And actually, when you Google "Girl You Want," that song keeps popping up over and over again.
It's probably going to take precedent over everything else, right?
Yes. So the show itself, "Girl You Want," is curated by Vanessa Lyon. She is an art historian. She's also a writer. She wrote a book called "Figuring Faith and Female Power in the Art of Rubens." She takes a feministic approach to women and religion in that book. A lot of different issues fascinate her and guide her into teaching and into writing and academia. She's very much she focuses a lot on gender issues, racial equality, injustices. Some of those things are some of what she was looking for in the artwork that she was picking out. Girl You Want, when you first walk into the exhibit, one of the things that she immediately asks you is, what does that mean? Hooray, you're having a girl. But what's all tied into the meaning of being a girl and coming to age and growing up as a girl and a woman, and what identifies a girl as a girl? What kind of social, cultural, racial, religious implications does that carry?
And there's pressures with that.
There's a lot of pressures and a lot of, you have the media and you have the political atmosphere and you have all these things trying to guide to what the ideal woman is, and that can vary in many different races and cultures.
So I'd be curious to ask the chat, like, if you were a young girl at one time growing up, what sort of placed that pressure on you? What types of things were either in your environment or in your influence, more particularly, that sort of said, you kind of have to do this. This is or not have to, but it felt like you had to, right? It felt like that was something that you had to, to do. And so, it's an interesting question. I think for the chat, it's something that could really get the conversation going.
Yeah.
Now, the artists that are in this show, there's a variety of approaches to this, from the sort of very minimal and abstract to things that are a little bit more concrete, nostalgic, referential, which I like. I like having this blend because
I liked and one of my favorite artists relied heavily on some of the nostalgic influences because I feel like it can draw different ages too. I mean, the show focuses a lot on culture, race, gender identity, but that also pulled back the age thing so that age was recognized.
Right.
So I was very grateful for that as well.
Well, I'm going to scroll down a little bit on the website here so everybody can kind of have a look at what's going on. Yep. There's a great little statement here that kind of talks really about the overarching sort of mission of the show, the vision of the curator. And then we sort of set the stage with what we see when we walk in. Again, seeing this on the website is one thing. I really think going there, and once we talk about some of these pieces and get through them, you'll kind of understand, I think, a little bit more as to why you really kind of get in there. You need to get in there and see it in person.
I do want to compliment the curator in Art Yard too for infusing all the senses in so many diverse mediums.
Vanessa Lyon.
Vanessa Lyon. Because you had everything from photography to sculpture to installation to film. Everything was represented, as well as the diaspora of different peoples. We had Native Americans, African Americans, transgender. We had so much representation there that it was really overwhelming.
Yeah, it was really, really well covered, and from both a diversity standpoint as well as a sensory standpoint, which is what Terri was saying. And there's an interesting piece in this show. Actually, I just want to back up for 1 second to Corinne Smith's piece, Pinky 2, which is this installation we'll probably talk more at length about. But this piece, that hanging drapery, is made out of a collagen film. Now, it emulates all kinds of other material sensory sort of experiences like the translucency in skin, flesh, all of those things. And then, of course, you approach this and you can go inside of it. There's a way in. I don't know if I have the other picture here.
The other side.
Yeah, there's an entry point. So it both functions from an interior, exterior kind of way. You get inside, and I really wanted there to be smell.
Yes.
And then when I found out that it was collagen, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while, at that point I was very thankful that there was not smell.
Yeah, well, there were other materials used in making this particular sculpture too. You had flesh clamps, you had found bees, you had falsies, you had silicone and hair, you had some baby powder.
These objects and materials are embedded in that collagen drapery, right? And so they're there.
The back side here that we're looking at almost looks like like a nylon, almost like the buttress that gets cinched at the back of the gown or the corset, and that kind of unfolds on the interior.
Right.
It's very interesting. It's almost womb-like when you're in there.
It is, and you feel this compelling urge to get very close to the material. You know that there are objects embedded in this material, number one. And so you find yourself very up close and personal with it. Now, this has implications of its own, right? There's both this beautiful translucency. There is an allure to the material. There's almost an inherent kind of sexuality. Now, I bring up that word simply because I cannot ignore Eva Hesse's work and her work with latex, her work with polyurethane, her pioneering some of these simple abstract forms that probably embodied both humor and sexuality on two different functioning levels. But there's so many similarities in this to the way Eva Hesse worked. I can't help but, immediately recall her sculpture as I get inside of this. Now, there is this kind of, as I begin to think of that, and I think about that alluring quality, that translucency, that thing that draws me in and wants to look closer, then I'm partially a little bit repelled by the fact that it's a collagen film, right? A collagen film is a very strange thing. It's used in the decorative packaging of cured meats. It's an edible collagen material.
Well, in our bodies, we have collagen as well.
It's what makes us strong.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. But like in our, in our fat and adipose tissue and things like that, they inject collagen into various parts of the body for cosmetic reasons.
Oh, that's true,
that's
right?
True.
Little lip enhancement. Yeah. 63 is here. So it seems like the perfect anti-Sarah. I love that comment. Yes. And he's saying yes to the Hess reference. Yeah, I think it's definitely in order. But there's this constant kind of back and forth with this piece I found that I really enjoyed. Interior, exterior, beauty and attraction, repulsion, and this kind of realization that, and then flesh clamps. Okay, forgive me, but when I saw flesh clamps on the material list, I'm like, what's a flesh clamp? So I had to go look it up. Go look it up after the show, but go look it up. And if you're into like the BDSM kind of realm.
What I thought it was.
Oh yeah, they're totally for like really,
I guess so. But, when I think of, because I'm a nurse, I think of like surgical clamps too. Like they're flesh clamps.
That's not what these are. That's not what these are.
Obstetrics clamps.
These are
okay.
These are totally sex clamps.
Okay,
they're fine. And frankly, I find that to be perfectly aligned with this kind of push and pull, right? That's taking place.
Yeah.
All of these draperies are being hung off that armature up top by them. But, and I don't want to spend too much time on one single piece. There's a lot to explore in this show. But Corinne Smith's work, when you come upstairs in the museum and you can see the stairway behind it, that's the entry point to this very large, spacious, well-lit room. This is what greets you. And a lot of the rest of the show kind of almost hides behind this. It's almost like, I thought momentarily about the girl hiding behind her mother's skirt or wrapping herself up in her mother's skirt. And this kind of feels like that skirted drapery
that
protects or hides the rest of the show.
Sure.
So I really thought this was a well-placed and well-curated piece in this show for that reason. So too.
There was also music playing overhead, which I don't know if we should reveal it or not.
We could reveal it.
But the music actually worked very well to add to that overall sensuality of the exhibit.
Well, wait, before we reveal the music, I have a question, but you would know better than I would. Was that music associated?
So I don't know.
Okay.
Because I couldn't identify where it was coming from.
So there's music pipe or just sort of emanating through the space.
It might have been from a particular piece, but as we were walking through, I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. It was Dolly Parton's voice coming over.
It was Jolene.
It was Jolene. It was actually beautiful because of the acoustics in the room. You had the tall ceilings and some steel on the ceiling as well as the floor. The music was just reverberating.
And it was a haunting kind of reverberation. And on top of that, if you think about the lyrics to Jolene, Dolly Parton's Jolene, I mean, I'm assuming that many of you might know that, some of you don't. But she's pleading. Dolly Parton pleads with Jolene not to take away her man. Because Jolene can.
But in the same sense, when I reread the lyrics of Jolene, because I was like, this is a very interesting song to choose for, Vanessa Lyon. She doesn't strike me as someone who would pick a song that's all about, my man kind of thing. When I was listening to it, Dolly Parton sings the praises of Jolene in a backhanded way. She's like, your emerald eyes and your auburn hair. It's like very poetic, complimentary things. You almost wonder if she likes her as much as
you think Dolly Parton's attracted to Jolene.
Well, not necessarily, but it was hard to, there's a thin line between love and hate. So to me, I was just wondering if she was more singing her praises in a way.
I like that.
The use of Jolene was very interesting to me.
I do want to point out while we're talking about the show, and we've got the Art Yard's website up, that the photographs on this website were taken by Paul Warchel. I'm not sure exactly how that's pronounced.
Yeah, it's on their website.
And he does have an Instagram that you can go check out for his photography at Paul_Warchel. So definitely, I do want to give him credit for this. But definitely go and check that out. Also, the Art Yard is on Instagram, if that is your mode of choice, at Art Yard Center. So pull them up and give them a follow.
Yes.
All right.
So moving on. So this is all on the first floor. And when you actually look at the first floor survey, which is right here, you're greeted by the pieces of 3 different artists. So we had some home runs. Genevieve Gagnard was on Gagnard.
Sorry I don't mean to correct you.
Gagnard. That's okay. On the left side, that was the bathroom. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have Jen Liu, and she did a number of pieces towards the back wall.
She's towards the back, yep.
And then on the side wall here, which we're going to look at in just a few moments, this was Wendy Red Star and her daughter Beatrice Red Star. These are the costumes on the side. I noticed that the next picture was of the costumes, and this is actually a fascinating artist and her daughter, and she's very well known. She's really a rising star. She is the artist in residence over at the Denver Art Museum, and she works with her daughter and collaborates with Beatrice Red Star, who is only 9 years old. And Wendy Red Star is she grew up on a reservation. She's a Crow Indian. I cannot pronounce the proper name of their tribe. It's the Apsaluk, but known as the Crow Reservation in Montana. Her father was a rock musician. Her uncle was a painter. Her grandmother sewed regalia for tribal dances and whatnot. Wendy Red Star is a multimedia artist. She works in a variety of different things, mostly photography. She's also very involved in Native American crafts and sewing as well. She's very wanting to preserve her history and pass it on to her daughter. And she doesn't just recognize it as Native American history, it's U.S. history.
Right.
And she looks at the way that images of Native Americans have been appropriated to sell products and such like that. We do have a really good video which shows the mother and daughter in action and what they do. And let me just talk about these. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you first.
I just wanted to point out that these costumes were made for Beatrice because what Beatrice, the little
young girl
who's 9 years old, what she does is she leads gallery tours for children, and she helps to create the gallery tours because she feels that children would better, her appeal towards children would probably be better than an adult's. So these are all
the focus.
that she wore.
The focus is on the daughter's presence in that duo, right?
Definitely.
Which is why we're seeing her costumes here and not necessarily Wendy Red Star's work.
Right.
Right. So, which this is part of. I mean, they are a collaborative practice, but we the focus is on Beatrice's presence in that duo.
As well.
Right.
Yes.
So we've got a quick video that we can show you that you can kind of get familiar with the two of them. And I'm kind of excited to show that to you. Let me just pull that up here so we can see. And as usual, I am going to totally... Here, let me do it this way because it's going to be faster.
He always figures it out, though. I never stress.
I try to figure it out.
So good.
All right, take a look at Wendy Red Star for a minute. This is about 6 minutes long. It's definitely a great little watch. Here we go.
That you see behind.
Hold on a minute. I got to back that up because we messed up.
Oh, we watched it a couple times over.
Here as an artist in residence at the Denver Art Museum, I've known that the museum has a great collection of Crow material objects. And so I'm most excited to be studying those objects and kind of doing like a deep sort of research-based practice while I'm here, and just really kind of taking my time figuring out where I want to go with the research that I gather. Another aspect of my practice is working with my daughter Beatrice, and it's really wonderful that she can come here to the museum, and she's also a working artist doing her thing, and we're collaborating together. And we're really interested in the Crow women's objects, mainly because I, as a mother, want to pass things down to Beatrice, and I want to learn as much about how the women made a lot of the material objects. I discovered that the museum hired WPA workers to come in the 40s and all the way up into the 70s to come in and draw each of the objects on the catalog cards. And there are these exquisite drawings, watercolor drawings, that depict each of the objects. And so that's something that I was really drawn to, because it's another artist who's had intimate time with each of those objects. So I'm really interested in maybe trying to find out who those artists were, more about that program, that important part of our history, and just kind of drawing a connection between them and my culture as well.
I'm going to tour children as a child through the Western and Native galleries. So they were able to experience a child teaching them, and also to be able to learn about Native culture, Western history, then maybe do some activities that may inspire them. Well, I think that sometimes it's easier to understand another child than to understand an older adult. And I just thought that maybe some children would be more comfortable knowing that this is a tour made by a child for children, and maybe gain a new perspective on art.
I'm excited about Bee's tour because it's giving children the platform to feel like their opinions matter, and their experiences when looking at art are just as important as an adult's opinion. The backdrop that you see behind me is a project that I did when I was a graduate student at UCLA. During 2006, I made 4 dioramas and I used 70s photo mural backdrops. And it was an experience that I had going to the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles that kind of brought about this project. And what I noticed is that you had to go through the dinosaur exhibit to then go to the native galleries. So it really set the tone that everything was in that museum, and all the kind of culture tied to it was a non-existent or non-living culture. And I saw crow material and objects and moccasins, but they also had dioramas that were really interesting. And just the vibe that I got from the people walking through and seeing those exhibits, and me being a living crow woman, was really surreal. So I decided I wanted to make these dioramas and place myself in them in my traditional crow outfit. And what I've done now that Beatrice is around and in my life, we've sort of recreated the 4 seasons, one for her at the Seattle Art Museum where she did a public project, and here at the Denver Art Museum. So we're inviting the public to come in to the diorama and put themselves on display and have their photo taken. So it's sort of like all of these objects that are from these different tribal nations that are taken out of context and they're put on display. And I very much want to have people have a more human and compassionate connection with those objects. And so by having them put themselves on display as well, kind of objectifying themselves, is a way for me to kind of like bridge that gap a little bit.
Excellent.
Every time we work.
All right, so I'm going to pause that one there.
Yeah.
And I want to just pop back over to this window. Jess Park, I love the layers of artwork. So wonderful. You know, I have to say, I feel like, a whole bunch of stuff just came flying in. That's interesting. I have to say that I can't help, I love Wendy Red Star's work. Mm-hmm. And I love the connection the two of them have, the collaboration that they have together. I wonder, though, what it means, whoops, that's not what we wanted to be there. I wonder what it means to have this display in this show, this girl you want, and the relationship Beatrice has to her mom, and the fact that this collaboration has, dare I say, a kind of pressure?
I almost, as soon as you started talking like that, I was starting to wonder the same thing.
Now, don't get me wrong.
Yes, I think she wants to pass down the tradition.
Right. So I think what I'm going for here in this is that maybe pressure is a bad word.
No,
right?
I understand what you're saying now.
Because we're talking about influences. And in this case, I feel like this influence is a very strong one.
Yes.
A strong one that's rooted in, like you said, a tradition, right? And a strong one, I think, that's rooted in teaching, right? Because you know, as artists putting things out there in the world, I think, you know, we all hope to kind of have our work say something to someone and in a very light way. That's a kind of teaching, right? And so for her mother, for Wendy Red Star's work to sort of be seen and be seen by her daughter, seeing people see it. That's a very long, complicated, ridiculous sentence that probably shouldn't have been said. But my point here is that, you know, Beatrice is growing up in Wendy's influence.
Yes.
And having her participate in this teaching capacity, I think helps to fill out that role.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Which I love.
I thought it was a beautiful addition to the show on multiple levels. And the costume or the outfits are really exquisite.
Oh my gosh, the craft
in person.
The craft is exquisite. They're so gorgeous.
They are beautiful.
Should we keep rolling here?
We can keep moving. The next artist that was featured was Jen Liu, and this is all from. She kind of had the whole back room. She had multiple pieces involved. You could see the sculpture up front, the rolling wire racks that were really compelling. We were kind of really digging into the little nooks and crannies because things were hiding in the tube and in the bowl, and there were like some crumbled up cell phones. And Todd, you actually said something really interesting during the show because you're like, it's like a wire rack that's just not doing its job correctly.
Well, yeah, because these were real to me. The paintings aside that are associated with this, and her video aside, which the videos I loved.
And the wall too. That gold mirror in the back is also her piece as well.
I really took an interest in my frustration with these wire racks because they're sort of indicative. I mean, okay, so what do we have? We've got images of Vogue magazine. We've got articles and garments of clothing.
But they're not really Vogue. It's like Vogue.
I know.
Right.
But what,
falling apart.
They're suggesting a motif of fashion culture.
Right.
Right. And so, of course, that's going to have an influence on a young girl. Right. And so the display mechanism or the transport mechanism or whatever the rack's job is just so dysfunctional in this. But it's bright, it's beautiful, there are objects hiding in it. And I don't mean dysfunctional in a critical way against the art piece.
Right.
I think she's doing a fantastic job.
I think she's doing what she wants to do with it. It's working.
Yeah, there's a beautiful criticality here of that sort of situation.
It is, and when you interact with the piece, you are walking around it and you're looking into the nooks and crannies. It's very, very engaging. There's a lot of sparkly things in there. There's some things that are so beautifully displayed on there as well. Like there was that little gold spoon carefully positioned on a little ball. So there were some things that were magnificent, and then there were some things that were struggling, which was intentional.
And there were things that were totally dysfunctional and shoddy, like that bowl that's hanging. It's hard to see, but in about midway of the picture at the bottom, there's a bowl that hangs there. It's pink. It was filled with these like printouts of iPhones as if they were like, like cheap imitation discarded things in there. But at the same time, right on top of that curved wrap was this meticulous brass spoon.
Yes.
A lot of nice comments coming up. Gary987 says, Wendy Red Star projects great strength as a person of special heritage. I could feel her words. Right? And then John Park is like, it would be interesting to see this artist in the same show with Mike Rader.
I was actually thinking the same thing. I want to go back to that in a second, but Pumpkin Audrey also pointed out that I think the older we get, the more we appreciate our ethnicity. I agree with that. But going back to John Park's comment, I kind of thought the same thing because Mike Rader's like, he's an artist's artist. He's into everything. Yeah. And she's kind of the same way. I was very surprised that she had so many pieces in the show that were so connected. And I think of Mike Rader in the same way. He works in a variety of mediums.
And there were videos. We don't have those videos here. I did not want to put those videos in the show simply because, number one, I would have had to completely, I'm not sure how I would have pulled that off. Plus, I'm not sure, it was just dicey. But anyway, the videos that were in the show were very Mike Rader-like in that there were these sort of semi-fantastical impossibilities that reminded me of things from like, Mike's Ultraman series. There were also images of the artist or film clips of the artist in here in these sort of prosthetically enhanced impossible situations. Like she duct tapes this gold ball to her leg and I'm like, that looks exactly like what Mike Rader kind of is struggling with in his work. Yeah. So that's a really great comment, John. I love that. We didn't have a video for this,
right?
We
don't have a video. So a lot of her themes, this totally works in this show, Girl You Want. A lot of her themes also, she's Asian. A lot of her artwork deals around meats and the the mass production of meat in China and how much meat is consumed and biological engineering of food. So she had a lot of commentary on that. So it wasn't, I felt like if we put a video in, it would kind of disrupt the flow of the show a little bit.
Right. Because a lot of these artists are working out through a number of different ideas.
And that's just one of her ideas. But these were more of the ideas with gender.
More closely associated with the aims of the show.
Right.
But she, if you look her up, she's got some really, really interesting stuff going on for sure.
Does. And there's, on YouTube, there's a couple of interesting films made about her and her work. So she's definitely one to look at.
Yeah, and again, there's this idea, I love this kind of criticality that exists in these paintings that sort of hint at the notion of Vogue. The paintings have an opulence about them.
They do.
There's a beauty to them, but there's also this strange kind of repulsive, dysfunctional thing.
And in real life, going back to those paintings, I was surprised that they were on paper mounted in that frame because they do look like canvas, on either acrylic on canvas or something like that, but there was like a beautiful slight echoing, like you could see the texture of the paper
and a slight ripple to the surface.
And a slight ripple that I was like, wait a minute, it's a canvas.
So, and then we, right behind this gold wall that you see here, there is this little space to watch her videos. And so if you get out there to the art yard to see this show, spend some time with this because a lot goes on in that little room. So let's see. I think it's time to talk about Genevieve Gaignard.
Genevieve Gaignard. And we have a little video on her too that we'll show in a little bit. I have notes on her. So she was one of the artists that fascinated me the most. She did 2 major installations in the show that are hard to miss.
These are full scale.
Full scale. She is half African American and half Caucasian. I believe her mom was Caucasian, her dad was black. And she talks about, and the funny thing is, installation isn't her main gig. She's really into photography. She does these fantastic photos. They remind me of Cindy Sherman. She puts herself in the stills. She explores the realm of selfie versus, portrait. And she's talking about selfie culture. And she does these phenomenal photographs that span different generations. But anyway, she also works with installation and explores other mediums. She had 2 installations. This is a bathroom. When you first look at it, it has that nostalgic reference to the 70s, 80s kind of feel to it. But when you get close and you start marveling at the products and the labeling and some of the kitschy stuff going on here and there, the $100 bill towels, the products were all had a racial connotation about beauty and growing up and trying to assimilate into perhaps a more
it's the pressures applied. It's the pressures applied by, in this case, commercial society, right? Beauty products, all those things that exist in that system, right? And in this case, that system is entirely made by someone that is not of that ethnicity. And so you'll find things in these products like titles that are outrageous, and it's almost hard to believe that. I mean, it's not hard to believe, but it's appalling that there was this kind of like, these racial stereotypes and degrading terms built into some of these products. But these are the things that helped a young girl aspire to be beautiful in that space, and all of them laid out so carefully in this. I love that flamingo wallpaper.
And that's what Jess Park says. And John Park says, here is how well I know my wife. Before she made that comment, I thought, oh my God, she's going to want the wallpaper in the bathroom.
I love that. Yeah, I want that wallpaper too, actually.
Who doesn't want that wallpaper?
But on some level, there is just something about that really lush pink background that sets the stage for this kind of, this kind of beauty setting,
Yes.
right? And the towels, they're $100 bills. I mean, you're wrapping yourself in that when you get out of the bathtub. I mean, there's this glamorous kind of feel to this whole thing. But then on the other level, just like in Corinne Smith's piece, there's this kind of like back and forth. There's a tension that takes place here that's just fantastic. I mean, not fantastic, but it's really a compelling piece in that, I want to spend time in this room, and then I see what's going on, and I'm like, God, why am I here? This is awful.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be. I don't want this to be a reality.
Yeah, and it does. A lot of these pieces deal with growing up in adolescence, and I can certainly relate to what's going on there. I mean, our bathroom kind of looks like this with a young girl, only in today's modern age, and then you feel that angsty thing too. Like you see all the products, the repetition of products is very effective in this piece because it really keeps hammering down that image.
Yeah.
Like when it's got that skin lightening cream, skin lightening cream, skin lightening cream.
Yeah.
And this repetition of, there's like kitschy references to other ages and what's beautiful. And you see the African braids and
leave it alone,
there's
Memory
like
Vessel.
cocoa butter. There's all kinds of different.
Walk away. Sorry, I'm talking to Memory Vessel.
Okay.
Tell her to walk away.
But yeah, and it's kind of heartbreaking in a way.
Well, what's
to
really
see somebody, feel like they keep trying to aspire, and you can picture them trying, and it's like,
Well, and then written on the mirror in lipstick, it says "Be more."
Yeah.
Which is.
It's like Mad Men advertising. If anybody's a fan of Mad Men,
Yeah, kind
it's
of.
like you always want happiness, and what is happiness? The moment before you discover you need the next thing.
Right.
So, but anyway, this piece, and I'm a kid of the 70s, 80s, so I look at this and it just kind of put me back in that space.
Well, Genevieve has another piece in this show,
She
and I think we
does.
should jump right into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because
And this is on the second floor. You walk upstairs, and you're in this room, and they're playing Jolene. Oh, are we gonna show that?
yeah, I'll show that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to gear up for
Okay,
the switch
okay.
here, so I don't jostle anybody too much. But I wanted to kind of jump in and just show you a quick little video I shot as I walked through the space. Now, this is back up on the second floor, is where Genevieve Gaynord's second piece is. And it's that bedroom installation you see there in the distance. But let's just take a look at that as we kind of walk in. So you've got this interior-exterior thing happening again. The lush carpet, the girl's bedroom. It's just loaded. It's chock full of different elements of nostalgia. There's Cabbage Patch dolls. There's several other dolls. There's a very important photographic portrait on the wall there. Let me just let's just pop up another one here. I think this one is from the outside, which, looking in the window, you have the opportunity in this piece to look in the window, which is a real different approach to the piece. Like it's almost as if I shouldn't be there, right? But it's prepared in such a way that you can have both of these experiences. So we're just running through the gamut here. That's not what I intended to do, but that's okay. We got a lot going on. So her piece. What is the name of this piece? I apologize. I'm speaking and I'm trying to.
I'm sorry. I don't know the name of it either. I love the website. I just wish we could see some of the titles and the dimensions written on the website.
Well, and I'm going to push back on that a little bit, and here's why.
Because it encourages people to come and see it.
I want people to go and see it. Exactly. If all the information is on the website, it's like, well...
Yeah, but the title, I forgot what the title is. I think I have it on my phone somewhere.
Well, the point here is that here's Genevieve Gaynord again, creating another environment that sort of thrusts us into that. Both, I want to be in that space, and then I really start examining what's going on in there, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this really interesting juxtaposition between black versus white dolls in this space, which, you know, I mean, I was alive and old enough to remember the Cabbage Patch craze, right? And it was one of those things where those dolls were just gobbled up by people left and right. Now, I would be interested to know, because I was too young to recognize or understand this at the time, but I'd be interested to know the frequency with which black versus white dolls sold.
So, because I was a kid, I was like 8 when Cabbage Patch Kids were really big, and you couldn't get any. Didn't matter what, what, you know. I don't know if stores stocked different.
I don't know.
I don't know if certain varieties were made less than that. That maybe that was. I don't know. I don't know.
But what
I don't think the availability though had anything.
Maybe not, but what I think the piece does is it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Right, and I walk away from this piece asking that question. Now, the portrait on the wall, which I'm not sure we can see, you can sort of see it in this image. So you see the little desk with the chair and the 3-way mirror there. Above that, there's a portrait of a young girl, and that is, I believe, Gaignard's niece.
I'm not sure if that portrait is. There is a picture on the dresser, a little prayer card. Her niece died young.
In a fire. And this piece was a tribute to her.
Yeah.
And I think a rather beautiful one. And, you know, it's, I mean, in a lot of respects, this girl's room is a really sort of, you know, beautiful, desirable girl's room.
Yeah.
She very carefully, though, I think, creates the questions and dialogues that she's, you know, trying to bring up.
She does. And you see a lot of juxtaposition. Actually, there was a part of this room, and I don't know if we can see it, but it reminded me of Betty Saar, the assemblage that she would do, because on the wall you see the Mammy dolls, but you also see 2 images, if you get closer, African-American women that are known in pop culture, and then there's like these little typography pieces on them. So there was some, to me, it was almost like an homage. I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm looking at a Betty Saar. Even the portrait to the left, there's a the black girl, and then there was some kind of saying on it too, and I can't remember what it is. But it was an integration, I feel, of growing up, and you have these 2 cultural, you have cultural fusion going on.
Well, I think, you know, there's a funny thing about coming to this piece second in the show for Gaignard's work, at least for me, and how I was reading Gaignard's work. The bathroom piece that was downstairs, you know, it really was a very evident conversation about blackness and being a girl, or at least the influences of that kind of product in a bathroom, especially with that "be more" on the mirror. And so there was a very clear way to look at that. If I had seen this piece first, or if this had been the only piece of the show, meaning the bedroom, I think it would have been, it's a much subtler dialogue for me in the conversation that's unfolding here. It's there, no doubt it's there, and I would have had those same questions come up, but I feel like the piece has a different kind of subtlety to it. We have a really great short 2-minute video with
and to answer Ben's question real quick, it's not a painting, it's a photograph of a little girl, and I believe she's got like
she's got a great head of hair.
She's got a great head of hair.
I wish I had half of that hair on my own head. Yeah. It's fantastic. Just big curly, beautiful head of hair. Let's take a look at that video. Yeah. Let's see if I can go find it, first of all, because it's here somewhere.
There it is.
And we are going to go with, hold on. Let's go here, and let's go here. All right, check out Genevieve Gaignard. I love her. She's fantastic. Here we go.
I'm not able to tell my full story through like one medium, so I access all these different ways of working. I work in photography, installation, as we're sitting in here, collage, and sculpture. So I photograph myself to talk about how we navigate through the world, how others see us. I usually pass as white, but I identify as a woman of color. My mom is white and my dad is black. This particular space, although it's kind of upbeat and bright and inviting, it's actually honoring the memory of my niece who passed away in a house fire a few years ago. Some of the objects in this particular space are from like my childhood. My aesthetic is pulled from my mom and like the things I grew up around. It's kind of this retro vibe. My MC Hammer doll is floating around somewhere over there. My original Cabbage Patch is in the mix there on the bed. I thought about making this spectrum of blackness because it's assumed that black is one visible thing, but it's a kind of gradient, if you will. In one sense, it's talking about race, but in another sense, it's talking about loss, things that reference passing on. A woman coming of age or a girl coming of age, these expectations of what is beautiful. The process might start with finding a wallpaper and then the carpeting, and all of these things act as like almost a time machine when they all come together because I'm interested in how you can play with time. A lot of people talk about, you know, we've come a long way and like we've dealt with a lot of issues, especially with race. At the end of the day, we actually haven't come as far as we'd like to pretend we have. Kind of placing the person in a past, but in the present.
I love that video.
I do too.
I really feel like it's important for us to recognize or at least consider, I don't know why that keeps popping in there. I apologize about that one thing that just keeps coming up.
Well, that's okay. She is the curator.
She is the curator of the show, so we should just keep doing her name over and over again. I think what I really like about this piece, and it's really making me think about now, is that there is this element of objectness that I really think it's important to consider, right? So what do we have? We've got a room filled with objects, right? And all of those objects add up. They all say in their little equation, this plus this plus this plus this plus this equals girl's bedroom. Now, what other smaller equations can we extrapolate from that? The conversations about race, the conversations about loss, you know, but in the end, this is entirely comprised of objects that already exist in the world.
Yes.
And these are objects that not only exist in the world, but we all on some level identify with.
Yeah, or we have replicas of. Or...
Right, but what does it mean to even have that? I mean, it's like, okay, so I put all these little tchotchkes and knickknacks around my room and I collect them as I grow. And a part of me is identified, meaning my very identity, my very self, the very notion that I know who I am is somehow embodied in this inert china ceramic thing, or the whole totality of all of those plastic, metal, wood, and china things in a room. Mm-hmm. This is very strange to me, right? But it's definitely who we are as people, right? I mean, they're little totems, they're little symbols, they're little talisman, and they all sort of are those collections are unique. Mm-hmm. That collection points to that particular girl. This one points to this one. And what are the differences really? Because these things are mass produced.
Yes.
But somehow their arrangement, they're like weird shrines on some level. They emanate a kind of power. That power is the identity of that person in a strange way. I'm very interested in the way those objects add up to be to be a person. Mm-hmm. I'll stop my rant. Pumpkin Audrey says, I saw Mammy from Gone with the Wind. Yep. Yeah. Ben says he saw the Rockwell painting. John says the picture just above the bed slightly to the right doesn't look like it belongs. Interesting. Just above the bed slightly to the right. Yeah, I think it's the smaller one.
Is it the smaller one? Well, there's a religious picture in there that shows the typical Catholic school, Caucasian, angel child thing. Is that the one? But there's also this other one here that I'm looking, but that's not a full-on thing. So I don't know if that's the picture he's referring to.
Right. But I really feel like these pieces, just in their scale and their presence, really kind of have this real. I feel like these are focal points of this show, right? I really feel like
I really feel like they are too. They're probably the most. They're the ones that resonated the most with me.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, but it has 3 figures in it.
Yep.
I think
it's that one, maybe?
That one, yeah. It's just above the center point of the bed and to the right. So it's not the smallest one. but it's larger.
Yeah, the other thing to point out is these were very deliberate choices. When you look at a young girl's room growing up, they're not really deliberate choices. It's just, she was given this, or she was given this, or they bought her this for something, or maybe she made this. So it's not as carefully curated as the artist. She specifically chose those objects. So,
right.
Yeah.
In the diversity aspect of a show called Girl You Want, there's actually a male artist in this show, which I was really interested to see the take on that and how this fit in. I like the way this, and you can see them off to the left here, these 5 photographs along the wall. To me, they create a really interesting dialogue with what's going on. I was puzzled by, the aim of the show, curating a male artist into this, until I got back and sort of spent some time looking him up.
And this is Josh
Rabineau. Yeah. So anyway, the other thing that's really interesting is here's another example of an artist who, number one, if you look at his work, and he's a young artist, he doesn't have a lot out there yet, but his work is primarily sculptural and brilliantly sculptural. He's got a few pieces that he was working on for his graduate school thesis, which was canceled due to COVID, and you were not able to actually see them, but they are out there on Instagram. Photographically speaking, he does make photographs, but to me, they did not appear to be the primary means in which he works. However, in this, he's making these interesting references to a sibling. And I feel like it's a male partner at the same time. There's an interesting tension drawn there.
There's definitely a tension. They're very lush photographs, but there is something kind of, one, like the one, and we don't have a close-up of it, unfortunately. It's the second one over from the left. Like it emulated like a reclining female nude that we'd see like in some Renaissance painting. But there is a sexual tension there. You feel like maybe some of the furniture seems a little bit more what we might understand as commercially feminine. You'd see it in like a girl's bedroom. So that was something like my mind was playing with it a little bit, like in the photos that maybe he was by himself. I'm like, well, is he in his sister's room? Is he exploring gender roles? But then you see him interacting with another young man. And so it was a thought-provoking piece.
Yeah, and I feel like when we're curating a show, say that is a survey of the life of an artist, a particular artist, well, that job boils down to, well, what can we get? What do we want to put in this show to really cover the full gamut of the artist's life? And then how are we going to sort of walk viewers through that life? In this case, it's a show that's curated around a particular theme. And that theme, I think, depending on the way you curate this, I feel like Vanessa Lyon really sets up a really interesting, thought-provoking dialogue with some of this work to consider that topic, right?
Yeah. When you're thinking of Girl You Want, and you think of adolescence and the rocky road to adolescence, and especially for someone who's, dealing with gender identity and coming to terms with that, or working through those issues, I think these photographs kind of brought that into the equation with this show. It kind of rounded out the whole spectrum of what she was presenting.
Sure. I think it's a very well-rounded. Ben Hagenbush says, it says who we are as a person. We're going back to the objects in the Gaynard piece. It says who we are as a person sometimes. 67 says, what you were talking about with the objects is somewhere between semiotics and object-oriented ontology. It's fascinating for that. Agreed. And then I like John Park's comment too, and I kind of want to talk to both of those comments. John says, I like your rant about collecting. I have only recently started collecting a particular kind of object. After you get over trying to assemble a nice collection of things, you end up realizing that you want a collection that somehow reflects you. That is what this bedroom seems to be trying to do. Yeah, and there's this book, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I believe it is called Cultures of Collecting. And there is an essay in the beginning of Cultures of Collecting by Baudrillard. And Baudrillard talks about collections in a very different way than I was trying to talk about that. His notion is how the object collected, because it is part of a series or a set, loses its identity as an individual thing. The function of that thing is stripped away, and it is basically reduced to like a more simplistic term, like a piece. Like if you're looking at pottery, for example, and you have a pot had a function, right? It was a vessel that, here we are with memory and vessel again. Memory vessel is a good person to have in this chat.
Memory vessel.
But if you have
It's you tonight.
a piece of pottery is like a vessel, right? But when we're collectors of pottery, well, now I have a piece. I have a piece by this artist, a piece by this artist. I'm no longer necessarily concerned so much with the function of the thing, but the existence of the thing, because now if I just have that existence, I possess that thing. It no longer has an identity out in the world as its own thing.
Yeah.
I now possess it. The reason why Gaignard's work is different from that is because its identity in the world is still crucial to conveying that message that sort of goes with the whole curatorial endeavor of the show, right? So I'm reluctant to use the word collection. However, I think there's a really interesting conversation between those two things.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to stop talking about that now.
Yeah.
Memory Vessel says, I believe I have that book. Great, go look for a Memory Vessel. Tell me if it's called Cultures of Collecting and if the essay in the beginning is by Baudrillard. And who's the author on that? Because Terri won't let me get up to go get it off of my shelf. So if you could, if it's not too much trouble, if it is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. All right, so let's roll a little bit here. Here's a couple more examples of Rabineau's photos.
And they're beautiful. They're lush. I love the colors. Like that's the reclining nude, and you can see we're like looking through a portal, and we're kind of coming upon him, and it's really beautiful.
Well, there's also these
and
really
like an innocence because he's sleeping with the sunlight
I was
coming
just gonna
through
say
on
that.
on the window.
There's an intimacy that we're sort of allowed in. There's a lot of voyeuristic elements to this whole situation.
There are.
The whole entire museum show has this kind of like, where are we? We're in the bathroom. Where are we? We're looking in tiny portals in these little VSGs.
We're looking in a girl's bedroom.
We're looking in a girl's bedroom. We're looking at these intimate portraits of a boy in his bedroom.
Right.
Right. You know, and there's several other examples of this.
Yeah, there's lots of examples of that in the show.
Even the collagen piece that's hanging. Right. I feel like I'm inside of a dress.
Yes. It's true. You had on that same video us walking into that piece. Do you want to just show that?
It's
real
not
quick?
us walking into it. It's just me quickly coming around it. And
Okay.
oh, here's Vanessa Lyon actually at the bottom of that web page with a little blurb on her. I think she's great to check out. Boojaz says it has the quality of Degamo. We got to look Degamo up. Can you look that up? Sorry, I'm not. This is one I'm unfamiliar with. I'm glad we're pulling. Oh, he says, I'm sorry, I meant Degas. We do know that guy.
I'm like, who's Degarma? Let's look him up.
You mean the portraits do? I think you're talking about the portraits, and they do kind of have that kind of quality.
They do.
There's like I think about the
and the chiaroscuro a little bit on the one here. There's some.
But also in this portrait where they're shaving, there's kind of that orthogonal line that recedes in the distance, almost like ballerinas on the bar, right? In some kind of interesting way. I like that. That's a great reference, actually. All right, so.
Spell check will be the death of us all.
Oh God. Remember spell check. It's never duck.
It's never
duck.
I didn't write duck, okay? Anyway.
All right, so Art Yard as a venue, and you know, I want to see, I just want to pull something up really quickly for me. I just want to check one thing out here. I've got this. I think this is the one that goes inside.
One that you go inside.
Let's go back to Corinne Smith's piece real quick.
Just to kind of give you what the inside
because
looks
we only
like.
had that one image of it.
Imagine hearing Jolene playing overhead too in a very haunting, echoey, beautiful sounding way.
Let's pull this up. Check this piece out. Oh, why is it so small? Hold on a minute. That should not be that small.
Make it bigger.
Let's make it bigger. Please hold. We're experiencing operating difficulties. Let's make that bigger. I have a feeling when I hit this, though, it's going to get really big. Oh, it's not
it's
bad.
good.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's good.
It needs to be a little bit smaller. Who's that guy? So you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. Also,
like a petticoat.
It's like a petcoat.
There, right?
It's somewhere between skin and dress, and it's got, and then either sewn in or layered in, almost like laminated into these layers of collagen. Are these? Why are you doing that? That's. Did you do that?
I think I did do that. I was having fun.
You were having fun. I think I just got a little bit dizzy.
But yeah, there's all kinds of objects embedded in the collagen. There's even a photograph at some
There was a
points
photograph in there.
embedded
There were
in
little
there.
elements of tulle in
Yeah.
there. There were falsies in there. There were a
Yeah.
couple of bees in there.
Yeah, it's almost like a cellular memory.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I like
so-
that. I like that notion.
Yeah.
All right. So it's getting on to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We love you guys for hanging out with us and being here
Yes.
tonight. I really feel like, this show is something that if you can get to French. Okay, so first of all, what else does Frenchtown, New Jersey have? Are you just going to go out there and
my God.
fantastic coffee shops and restaurants and places to sit and eat? I mean, you can really.
They have a record shop and they have a tarot place, and we ran right out, got some drinks afterwards. They have a trail.
Yeah, there is a canal path trail along a river. You can go for a beautiful walk. The art yard also has several annex spaces that exist outside the property. And we have a couple of little videos that we're going to throw up on
They have
Patreon
some
for that.
outdoor sculpture and poetry and all that good stuff
Yeah,
as well.
if you go to their website, if you go to Art Yard's website, you're going to find that there is a piece called "This Piece is a Message." Fantastic piece. It's installed in a little grassy yard area a few hundred feet up from the actual institution. It's wonderful to stumble upon. It comes complete with sound. We've got a video on that we're going to throw on Patreon. But definitely check out the Art Yard in Frenchtown, New Jersey. Great show.
Yep, Girl You Want is up until August 2021.
Yes, you have some time. And if you're going to make the trip out here, let us know.
Yeah.
We can grab like a bottle of wine or something.
We can hook up and have some drinks. We can even be outside the sculpture area there, although I don't think we're allowed to drink there. But
Oh,
yeah,
I'll bet
we'll
they'd
hook
let
up.
us. They'd let us drink there, I think. Anyway.
Anyway.
Listen, if you're watching for the first time and you have not yet followed, or if you're watching for the 10th time and you haven't followed, come on. Click the follow button. Jess Park says, we will let you know. That would be awesome. We would love it if you
Yeah.
guys came out. So, leave that follow. And we're really sorry about the late start tonight. Now, keep in mind, next week, awesome painter for the 14, 15, 20 of you that are watching right now who managed to hang on until 10 o'clock. His name is Hamlet Dobbins.
Yeah.
Hamlet Dobbins. Man, this is going to be a fantastic show of paintings.
We never say who we're going to do next
I
week.
know, but
So you guys all got a little
you got a little
glimpse.
sneak peek for.
You can do some homework and bring it to the
Yeah,
chat
look
if
up
you
Hamlet
want.
Dobbins from Tennessee. Beautiful paintings. He's going to be with us live from his studio talking about his practice. He is a gem. He's an absolute pleasure. We love talking with him, and you're gonna love the show. So I'm gonna stop talking about that now. I'm gonna thank all of you for being here almost till 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, thank you.
And we love you guys.
Yes.
All right. Cheers. We'll see you soon. All right. Now where the heck is that stupid button?